By getting to know yourself and fighting persistently for your own inner self, you've strengthened your decision never to leave your castle. That is, never to break the bond of love between you and your Creator. Your everyday prayer, based on meditation and with specific reference to your own life, is proof of it. It is already a definite style of life. You already live in the third mansion. Now your work on yourself is finally bearing the first visible fruits. Human nature yields to divine grace, and divine grace builds on human nature. One starts with working on virtues, that is, good habits and proper behaviour. Let's listen to Theresa's own words.
I believe there are many such people in the world. They are very desirous not to offend His Majesty even by venial sins. They love penance and spend hours in meditation. They employ their time well, exercise themselves in works of charity to their neighbours, are well ordered in their conversation and dress, and those who own a household govern it well. This is certainly to be desired, and there appears no reason to forbid their entrance to the last mansions, nor will our Lord deny it them if they desire it. For this is the right disposition for receiving all His favours.
From the vantage point of asceticism, that is, your own work on yourself, you are in a good situation, but not yet from the vantage point of mysticism, which is God's work in you. And so the third mansion, after the battles of the second mansion, is a time of putting everything in order. The defended castle needs to be cleaned up. Theresa does not hesitate to call those who are in this mansion God's chosen ones, on account of their desire to seek God, because of their generosity in responding to His love, humility and obedience to God's will. Also because of their willingness to control their preferences and to take advantage of good examples of life that they see around them. This stage, however, is still fragile. People of the third mansion are especially motivated by the fear that they may lose God. They know how much effort has been put into friendship with God, and that by foolish conduct this friendship can be easily lost. For the danger of running away or getting off the way still exists. On the outside, such a person lacks nothing, but to delve into the depth of themselves they need something more to offer themselves. Of course, the people of the third mansion have already done a lot. They are internally rich, quite pious souls. But mind you, they run the risk of taking all credit for it themselves, and they begin to believe it as if it were God who needed all this piety. Additionally, they begin to rely more on pious deeds than on God, and sometimes they even turn away from God, paying attention only to their own piety. That is why the saint warns here against being superficial and calculating. She knows from her own experience how much she suffered, because she could not totally give herself. She knows that nobody wants to lose oneself. And here one needs to take a leap into deep water. That's why she warns against cowardice. She knows that the self-absorbed person of this mansion, by looking at themselves, may easily build personal holiness even without God, and may successfully present a beautiful facade of a better self. What traps await the dweller of the third mansion? Well, it can seem to the person of this mansion that they know how to control the world, that they know the answers to all questions, that they can give brilliant counsel to everybody. In reality, they falter when they put to the test, not accepting help or advice from somebody else. A sense of superiority and supposed advancement on the way of piety simply do not allow that. Such a person has organised themselves so well that they have almost self-canonised themselves. They want to instruct, do not tolerate opposite views or a different way of looking upon faith. They beatify their own endeavours and choices, wanting everyone to be like them. So well organised in their piety, they are scandalised with everything that diverges from their own vision of piety. They exalt themselves above others, and no longer remember that once they also lived in a similar way. They waste a lot of energy on judging people, wanting to change them all the time, but this is not due to their personal concern for their neighbour, but rather to their desire to feel superior and more important. Often in their attempts to reform others, they are more concerned with matters of character than with the sins of their neighbour. Theresa also adds that the person of this mansion often wants to direct God himself, even to rule over him, expecting from God a suitable payment. I have already done my job. I have already prayed enough. Now it is your turn, God. Such a person feels good before God while blaming him for not answering their demands, even to the point of bearing a grudge against God for not directing their life as he should. They often complain that for their part they have done everything, and God still does nothing. So they behave like a child who, having received the money necessary to buy presents from his parents, bought them, but then, in his infantile ignorance, believes that his parents' joy is only his merit, and even awaits a reward. The person of this mansion is also in danger of the so-called holy illusions, that is, overestimating themselves. And these illusions are the ones that inhibit further development. Such a person is impressed by their own showroom full of religious trophies, and then in a highly refined manner they present God with a list of their requests. They ask, for instance, for consolation in prayer, and if they do not receive it, they blame God. I have done my job, now I am waiting for the gratification. However, God gives in abundance when you receive everything as a pure gift, not as payment for something. That is why Theresa talks about the inhabitants of the third mansion with irony. She simply mocks this type of saintliness. At the same time, as you remember, the saint was compassionate to those who stayed in the second mansion, wishing to give courage to those who struggle to be closer to God, but do not yet know how to do it. In fact, she was sympathetic towards them. In the third mansion, Theresa is very uncompromising. She criticises Pharisaism, which may sneak into a person's conduct. In this way, the saint wants to pull you away from being concerned only with yourself. For the goal of your journey is the life of Christ in you.
It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me.
That is why you should not demand gifts, but make room for the giver. Theresa encourages you to act, but with the attitude. So be active, create, do good, but don't stop there. Don't get attached. Let there be more of your heart, more freedom of spirit. Undoubtedly, the prayer of people in the third mansion has been greatly enriched, but their daily life does not yet go hand in hand with their prayer. For example, they very often, in the mood of prayer, ask to experience sufferings similar to Christ's, but it suffices that a simple trial in life appears, and then everything collapses. They know perfectly well the world of their rights and duties, but they cannot yet afford to make sacrifices in order to put them into practice. However, to be objective, it should be added that in this mansion we are dealing with a person who has made great progress on the spiritual path, who sincerely loves God, and who would like to go ahead to meet him. In order to help such a person, Theresa gives simple advice, the prayer Our Father, so that a person should desire that which is desired by God. That is changing the earth into heaven, which is the ultimate goal of the journey into the centre of the castle. The earth should become heaven, the laws of heaven are to become earthly laws, but until the earth becomes heaven for God, I, the human being, want to be his heaven. Thy will be done. In other words, let my life be your heaven. The third mansion is a space of obedience. It is a humble obedience that teaches freedom of spirit, that is, instead of self-sufficiency, the complete adherence to the will of God. Instead of complaining, courage in living your own humanity, instead of bargaining with God. A daily school of learning how to be disinterested. So do not be a lazy coward and take a leap into deep water. You are pious and you keep commandments. That's good, but maybe you fear greater perfection, or a direct relation with God, a living friendship with your Creator, which is beautiful, but it is also demanding. For this to happen, you need regular meditation, that is, daily interior prayer. Theresa speaks about this type of prayer in her Book of Life and the Way of Perfection. And it is really about developing in you a certain type of recollection, the so-called acquired recollection. How to do it? Put yourself often in the presence of God. Meditate on Christ's humanity. Let him become for you the real person. Look at him who is looking at you. It is important that his eyes and yours should be continually meeting. Seek God within yourself. Like a knight, enter the castle. Like a bee, fly into the hive. Shut yourself up in the heaven of your soul. In this way, with the prayer of recollection, you prepare yourself for the prayer of repose, for contemplation, that is, for the experience of God's presence within you. To sum up, the symbol of the third mansion is the rich young man. With his acquired wealth, he confirms the path he has already travelled, but he also presents a warning against relying too much on himself. He thought he had gained everything, but in reality he did not have the most important thing, a beautiful relationship of friendship with God. As a young man, he inherited everything. He got everything on a platter, but he learnt nothing along the way. The state of a person in this mansion can be described as having an orderly life which, however, may foster excessive pride and a willingness to remain static. Indeed, the majority of Christians spend their entire religious life here, or at least most of it. The response of the person of the third mansion is trustful obedience. His purpose is to further organise his life on the plane of consciousness. However, this is only the tip of the iceberg, the base of which is the subconscious. The subconscious itself belongs to God, and the work on it will take place in the other two mansions, the fifth and the sixth. The prayer of the third mansion is acquired recollection, staying in the presence of God and meditating on Jesus' life. Christ on the path of the third mansion is the demanding master and teacher. And the biblical figure, of course, is the rich young man, who received everything but did not gain wisdom, which can only be acquired through personal experience.